Oh, access.
You might not be either.
You gave out?
I've been here since the last meeting. So I got two of these. I've been here since the last meeting.
What do you,
I do have 2 of those.
I left this one here. So then like, during the week I stopped to pick it up.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hutchinson City Council meeting for April 12th, 2022. We'll call the meeting to order. To approve any council agenda additions or corrections.
Mayor, Council, just have one. I'd ask that we pull item 7G. I think that still needs to just go to the fleet committee first, so. Otherwise, the rest of the agenda looks good.
I'll make a motion to approve it as presented.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Invocation, Hope Family Church. Good evening.
Good evening, I'm Pastor Tim Vanden Langenberg from Hope Family Church here in Hutchinson. Thank you for this opportunity to stand before you. If you've noticed, there's a lot going on all around us. Jesus talked about these days when he said, you'll hear wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled. One translation says, but do not panic. Panic comes easy, fear comes easy, anxiety, worry. You have a choice, and you've been doing a good job as our city council to lead with courage, poise, grace, stability, and integrity. I want to say thank you and encourage you to continue to lead with courage. Lord God, thank you for this city council. We pray your guidance and we pray courage, strength, hope, peace, and goodness. In the name of Jesus Christ our Lord, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Recognitions of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anyone have anything tonight? All right, we have a couple resolutions underneath there. We have resolution number 15446, resolution accepting $5,000 donation from the Hutchinson Kiwanis Club for improvements and additions to the Hutchinson Kiwanis Park. And we have resolution number 15448, resolution accepting cash donations for the Fireman's Park project. Global Foundation Incorporated, $10,000. Hutchinson Kiwanis Club, $1,000. Patrick and Jessica Chapman, $1,000.
Mayor, I think someone from the Kiwanis Club would like to address the council regarding the donation. You may happen to know him from a past life, so.
Good evening.
Hello, strangers.
Well, come on, Bill, it hasn't been that long. You know, you gotta say your name and address.
Okay, Bill Arndt, 1460 Calgary, Mary Hankey Sacco. Hutchinson. We represent the Hutchinson Kiwanis Club, and through our works and donations we got for a gift from a different enterprise, we'd like to present to the city a check of $5,000 for the Kiwanis Park. We heard that it was going to be updated this year. Kiwanis Park is Rocket Hill, and we have the money to do that. And we also was approached by the local fire department to help there, and it's also $1,000 for that. Our Kiwanis Club is for youth activities, and that's why we're in business, and we keep working to make money to give back to the city.
Thank you.
This is Mary Hankey, and I was just gonna say that Bill is one of our leading lights. He has been behind all sorts of food fundraisers, and so that's a lot of hamburgers, brats, that this gentleman has led us with, and so we can't think of a better way of spending it.
So Gary, I think they want
Thank you.
pictures, so I don't know if you want to go out and accept that on behalf of the city. So, still need to accept that then, so, resolutions.
Have a motion to accept both resolutions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Pat, second by Mary to approve both resolutions. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is public comment. Anyone who wants to address the city, just please come forward. All right, we have approval of minutes. We have regular meeting minutes of March 22nd, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is consent agenda. This will be done with one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. A is consideration for approval of issuing short-term gambling license to St. Anastasia Catholic Church on April 22nd, 2022. B is approval of granting permission to Crow River Wineries to dispense liquor at the upcoming events. And that's the Garlic Festival, the Minnesota Pottery Festival, and the Arts and Crafts Fair. C is approval of issuing transit merchant license to Virginia Hightower of TNT Fireworks from June 11th through July 12th, 2022 in the Walmart parking lot. D is approval of the water treatment plant reverse osmosis piping improvements. E is approval of items for the 2022 street mill and overlays. That's letting number 2, project number 22-02. And there's 2 resolutions underneath there. There's resolution number 15438, resolution ordering preparation and reports on improvements, and resolution number 15439, resolution receiving reports and calling for hearing on improvements. F is approval of resolution number 15445, resolution authorizing to execute Minnesota DOT agency agreement for federal airport expense reimbursements. H is appointing of Elizabeth Cheney to the Police Commission to May of 2025. And I is claims appropriations and contract payments. Does anybody have anything they want pulled off? Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second. Motion by Chad, second by Pat to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We do have a public hearing, but we'll skip down to Parks, Recreation, Community Education Year-End Report. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Lynn, is that speaker on? There should be a green button that's, there you go.
Good evening. I did also to bring with a sketch, set these down. With the Kiwanis donation, we are going to be doing, some improvements at Kiwanis Park, so I thought I'd share those with the council tonight too. Just a sketch of that. There's gonna be a new playground going in, that the city has already purchased, and that'll be going in, and then also a retaining wall, and a nice overlook from that shelter with some of their donation funds that Kiwanis gave us, so I thought I'd share that with you guys this evening, since they presented the check. But I'm here tonight to present the PRCE, Parks, Rec, and Community Education Annual Report for 2021. These are the 3 brochure covers for 2021. We do run our winter, spring, summer, and fall brochures. Last winter, spring of 2021 was a electronic only brochure due to some of the restrictions for COVID and some of the unknowns in the early, late winter, early spring of 2021. But then we reverted back to the print brochures for summer and fall for 2021. So those are just the covers. So parks and natural resources, the community events, athletic competitions, and large gatherings did make a comeback in 2021, returning more to those 2019 events and competitions that we typically host after a year of 2020 being a little bit different. We did have an extremely dry summer, which kind of changed some of our seasonal help and their obligations and some of the things they did. Mowing crew was a little light, but they were repositioned into doing some seasonal support for watering trees, shrubs, and the perennials to keep those alive. And then our seasonal hiring did return back to a more normal year. We hired our normal crew for 2021 versus our 2020 being really light with our seasonals. Just some general site improvements. We did some general improvements at Tartan Park. Oddfellows Park improvements that was done in partnership with the Hutchinson Leadership Group. Redoing the shelter there, doing some walkways, and just big overhaul of general site maintenance at that park. JC Women's Park got a whole brand new playground with new equipment, and we moved it forward closer to the street. And then additional holiday lighting at Library Square was another thing for our general site improvements. Athletic field and court maintenance, we completed the new softball field on the Hutchinson High School campus, HHS. There was a St. A's field renovation project in partnership with St. A's and then our Parks Department. We had some grant funding for that. VMF, we did some irrigation additions and reconfigurations at that park. Landscaping, there was a big paver pathway to the overlook at Eheim Park. Elks Park, we did some new landscaping and some trees being planted out there. McLeod Veterans Park, there was a reset on the Main West Walkway paver section. And then Oddfellows Park also landscaped a really nice paver walkway to the restrooms. Forestry and natural resources, there were 79 trees planted in various locations around town, 51 trees removed, mostly ash trees. Invasives were removed along the Crow River, and then a butterfly garden was planted in Girl Scout Park in conjunction with the Girl Scouts. Total park hours was 20,427. A big chunk of that was for general maintenance, followed by mowing all of our sites, athletic fields, and landscaping, where most of our hours were allocated for park staff. These graphs just show some of the sites in which we take care of Hutchinson Utilities. We dedicate 382 hours of our park staff time to that site. And then there is 1,299 hours dedicated to district facilities, part of our agreements. So it shows the hours that are dedicated to those sites. And then mowing and weed whipping is a big chunk of our Parks and Natural Resources crew as well. Birch Arena, we completed the bidding process and awarded bids for the East Rink roof replacement, exterior sidewall improvements, and then those were awarded to Voss Construction and Rouse Masonry. For the project to begin in 2022. All LED lighting throughout the facility except over the sheets of ice were done in 2021. And the design work for the East Rink roof and exterior sidewall improvements were completed. And like I said, that project will take place here in the spring of 2022. So all the planning was done in 21. And then working with Nelson Rudy for the HVAC design to also happen in the East Rink. The parking lot was resurfaced. We did a lot of removal of the north and south side landscaping in preparation for construction. And then in 2021, we started planning for an extended ice season for user groups at the Birch Arena, extending past their normal ice season. And then there was a shift from our facility maintenance technician position from a 32-hour to a 40-hour position, and then we had a new hire that started in 2021. Due to the restrictions that were early on in 2021, there was no PRCE and HFSA ice skate show last year. This just shows the ice time report for the normal season of the ice arena. So total hours for 2021 were 1,709, which was up from 2020, but down from 2019. Still quite not a completely normal year in 2021, but this year is looking to be much more normal. With youth hockey and figure skating being our biggest users of the ice time. And then this next chart shows summer ice. There was no summer ice in 2020, and then in 2021, we did have 150 hours of summer ice, which was still down about 100 hours from the previous year. Moving on to the rec center and athletic center. The upgrades to the recreation center were completed, and those are the pictures from the project. It now looks very nice there. We completed and re-landscaped the perimeter of the rec center building. The parking lot, again, like I said, was resurfaced and new sidewalks were put down around the rec center. We finished the replacement of the sidewalk lighting fixtures, and those are all upgraded there. And then we did reopen the Hutchinson Aquatic Center after the 2020 closure. This graph shows attendance for the Hutchinson Aquatic Center. In 2021, we had 40,687 participants throughout the summer, and there's a breakdown for June, July, and August with the participants for each month. It returned much more back to the 2019 numbers after the closure, and that attendance does not include any private rentals. So that's just general public going to the aquatic center and taking attendance. We do have number of private rentals, groups coming in from out of town, and that's not figured into those numbers. And then throughout the summer, we had 6 total free family swim nights that were sponsored by Thrivent Financial, Hutchinson Health. They partnered for 3 dates, and then Common Cup also sponsored free family swim nights. And those are really large evenings that bring in a big group of people for those family swim nights. And then swim lessons at Carlson Pool, due to some of the restrictions, we did lower the amount of kids in each class. So we had a little bit smaller number of participants for our swim lessons, but we served 364 kids at the pool for swim lessons. And that was separate, that would be at the middle school pool. Recreational programming, that returned a little bit more back to normal again, like I said, after a year of pause, and we saw a huge decrease in numbers of participation due to restrictions and maybe some fear in 2020, but 2021 definitely returned back to a normal again. We had a new federal law for safe sport certification for all of our coaches and our programs, so that includes background checks, concussion training, and safe sport training for any coach that coaches within our programs. And so that was now rolled out in 2021. And then we did have a new registration system that we transitioned to. We went from Max Galaxy to ActiveNet, and we're still working through that transition currently, but that happened in the later part of 2021. And then we continue to see an increase in pickleball participation. So in 2021, we did purchase some portable nets that were left at the outdoor facility where they play at Park Elementary. This graph shows some highlights from our youth participation. Total for 2021, we had 1,396 kids served in our youth programs. One of the largest being our soccer program. We have seen a huge increase in soccer participation, indoor and outdoor, over the years. So that's our biggest youth participation that has really grown over the years. Adult programming, we continue to see a decrease in our adult sports teams. There is an increase in pickleball, but a lot of our co-rec, baseball, volleyball, softball, those types of team sports for adults, we're seeing a decrease. But we did track pickleball usage in this chart, but on average there's about 50 pickleball players a week that come to the rec center indoors. And then there's a large group that is serviced outdoors during the nice spring and summer and fall months. but we'll continue to track the trends to see if there's other programs we can offer for our adults to serve them with adult sports programming. Event Center and Senior Center, and then also adaptive recreation. So the Event Center did host 185 events, including city events, private events, and business events. And you'll see in the next chart, or the next slide, there's a chart that was a lot lower in 2021. And then senior programming slowly started to uplift after the restrictions. So we saw as the year went on, we saw a lot more seniors coming back to the Senior Center. And then the seniors did raise money to install a flagpole on the exterior of the building, and that's the picture shown there. That was installed this past fall. The seniors did have a successful book and puzzle sale that they put on at the Senior Center. And then we did receive a grant from United Way for some adaptive recreation programs that were hosted there. This just shows facility usage. So the Event Center rentals, to kind of put it into perspective a little bit, in 2019, the Event Center hosted 419 events at the Event Center, and in 2021, we only had 185. That was with some of the restrictions and then just coming back to rentals. In 2020, there was also 164. Senior programming, we had about 775 facility rentals for senior and adaptive. And so for a total for the Event Center, just facility usage was 960 rentals for the year. This would be more of our programming numbers. So total participation for seniors, adaptive rec, those two programs together was 7,151 participants. And then that was down about half from 2019, but we continue to see that number come back up as people are feeling comfortable to come back out again. But in 2020, we took a really big hit on senior participation and adaptive recreation participation, where it dipped down to 3,397 for the year, but we did come back up in 2021. Also, within our department, we serve community education. So they run a little bit different on their year-end reporting. So they run July 1 to June 30th, so these numbers do dip back to 2020, and then also into 2021. So just showing in conjunction for PRCE, we offered 23 camps and activities from July and August after the previous closures. And then there were 14 community education activities that took place November to December. And then there was 31 community education activities from January to May. And then this chart just shows the facility usage within the schools. And there was a total of 396 permits that were given for usage in the schools at the middle school, high school, Park West, outdoor fields, and the parking lot. And then there was a total of 172,800 participants that were served by those facility rentals. This shows our community ed programs. So there's a total of 66 classes held that ran through our community education programming side of things, with a total of 1,142 participants. And that just breaks it down into spring, winter, fall, and summer for our 3 catalogs and brochures that we put out. Also under community ed is middle level activities. We're the fiscal agent for those, but they're under the direct supervision of the district's activities director. So we work really closely with him to put on those middle school level activities. Also under us is adult basic education that is ran out of Bridgewater, also through the Glacial Lakes Consortium out of Wilmer, but it's hosted at Bridgewater and through us. And then also early childhood family education, which is now hosted at West Elementary. So just some of the 2022 projects and goals of our department. We're going to work on implementing the new City of Hutchinson logo into our PRCE department to kind of rebrand ourselves to align with the city's branding mission. We're going to work on our public communication implementation, so our social media outreach, working on kind of redoing our brochures, and then working on some of our website updates to make sure that all of our information in our department is reaching everybody in the community. We're working on an internal work plan for our project management, and then working with HR to really streamline our seasonal hiring practices. We bring a lot of seasonals in. We want to make sure that they're trained and retained to put out the best programs that we can through PRCE. And then some of the other project goals of 2022, we're working on what the future of the Event Center and Senior Center operations will look like. continuing to work on our splash pad planning in conjunction with HKGI. The Birch Arena project will start here really soon. Working with some of the associations for extended ice season. We have a Girl Scout bump out project going out that'll actually is about to be completed and will be out at Girl Scout Park here shortly. Working with the fire department to install Fireman's Park, the playground project. We have the Kiwanis Park project that I shared with you. Working on a bike fleet project and then a big project out at AFS in conjunction with the Hutchinson Leadership Institute. So we got a lot of big projects going on here in 2022. Any questions?
When you talk about Birch Arena and you replace the lights but not above the ice area, is that planned with this project or is that a future project?
Yep, that's planned with this current project. So in 2021, we did all the other items minus above the ice, so that will happen here in 2022.
Okay.
With all the other projects going on there.
How have you been for getting people for the aquatic center?
We just found out we are actually fully staffed for the aquatic center for this year. We are
Outstanding.
way ahead of schedule than we've ever been.
That's good news.
It's great news. I think a lot of it had to do with retainage from the past year with the increase of seasonal wages. I think that really helped to retain a lot of our staff that were on the fence of if they should come back or not. But we are fully staffed. The aquatic center, also our park seasonals are fully staffed. And I think our concessions crew and building and admissions into the pool are just about to be fully staffed as well.
It's 2 months ahead of last year.
We are way ahead of them last year. It's been great.
So Lynn, when you talked about the adult activities and that a lot of those are down, you know, so, and pickleball is up. We all know that. I mean, all summer they're playing and they're playing in the courts too. But what else can we offer them? What else can you offer those adults that used to be involved with like softball and all those other activities? I mean, is there something else out there that we're not seeing or doing?
That's what we really need to kind of track our numbers and figure out. We do host a lot of the like main activities for adults. We're seeing a lot more adults not wanting to per se sign up for a whole league or things like that. So that pickleball, it's a goal. You can go for a one-time thing. So maybe looking at not hosting per se these big leagues that go all summer, but maybe hosting like a smaller tournament or like a one-time event or things like that. So we really need to kind of rethink how we program for adults because they're so busy and taking their kids to things too.
Right.
So Mary, what happens is like when your kids were little, you slept during the day, and now it's all at night. So we're all coaching our kids and that kind of stuff, so then we can't play ourselves.
We do rope the parents into coaching the kids' teams. We have volunteer coaches, so they're very busy. So it's kind of rethinking how we hold those leagues or those teams for the adults.
Right. Well, thank you.
And Lynn, I think it's in the brochure, but I know people start asking what the plan is for the opening of the aquatic center.
June 1st is the date that we're going to open. There is some hopes if they can get staff committed to opening sooner, but the actual advertised opening date is June 1st, and then anything before that would be a bonus day. We're hoping, but June 1st is the actual hard open date.
You need some warm weather too.
Yes, we do.
Anything else for Lynn?
Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing for the Truck Highway 15 trail improvements, levy number 3, project number 22-3.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, we have a couple project public hearings this evening. These are just formalities that we're administering as part of our project delivery process. There are no special assessments per se associated with either of these projects, I should say. So With that, we'll start with our Trunk Highway 15 Trail Improvements Project, which we've discussed quite a few times over the last few years. And just briefly, the scope of the project, like we talked a little bit about at the last council meeting, is replacing the sidewalk on the westerly side of Highway 15, starting on the south end here, Grove Street intersection of Highway 15, and then extending north up through Brown Street. And we come around the curve and go through the Franklin Street intersection. We do have a temporary construction easement that we did need to capture from the property owner in this area due to some grade issues and really needing to lower our trail to get the grades to work in that area. We are going to get into some private trees there, so we did negotiate a fair price for those tree impacts and have that easement in place. And then lastly, we go up to Landon Avenue. So with that, like we talked last time, here's our, I guess our final construction estimate. We're at about just over $200,000. This only includes the Highway 15 work. It doesn't include the Highway 7 sidewalk work that was originally piggybacked with this trail improvements, these trail improvements. Like I mentioned before, MnDOT and their plan review office just made it real difficult to deliver the Highway 7 sidewalk work. So anticipate that sidewalk work will be addressed in 2028, give or take, when MnDOT does a concrete roadway rehabilitation project. So might not only be that sidewalk on the easterly end of town, it might actually be an incorporation of a sidewalk on the south side of the roadway there also. So with that, we'll let MnDOT tackle that. We'll focus on the Highway 15 trail improvements. We're at about $200,000 for this work. Our local partnership program, MnDOT grant, will more than cover this work. This grant was approximately, I think it's just over $400,000 is what was dedicated when we secured that grant a few years ago. And that is about it. Like it's mentioned there in the brief project scope, new multi-use trail facility by construction, tree removals, grading, bituminous surfacing, a little bit of landscaping, and then restoration work. So with that, I don't know if council has any questions, thoughts on this front. Like we touched on last time, we are hoping and we do anticipate all of the construction costs being eligible for this local partnership program grant. So don't foresee any costs coming out of the city's bonding or anything of that sort.
I just wondered, what's the time frame on this? You know?
Well, we have to work through MnDOT's process, of course, and that's been clumsy on this front, to say the least. So we do have to have the project bid and awarded prior to this current MnDOT state fiscal year ending in July, ending actually at the end of June. So, yeah, and we don't anticipate that being an issue. So hopefully we'll work through the MnDOT's approval process here the next few weeks. There will be a cooperative agreement, state agreement, that'll come to council at some point here. We do believe we can get this out for bids, hopefully in the meantime, get that agreement, finalized, the parallel process, and then hopefully come, I'd probably say late May, early June, we would be awarding the project and then getting construction going in July, August.
That was what I was wondering when
Excuse me?
That was my question.
Okay. So with that, yeah, like I said, it's just a formality, and
Any other questions for you? We'll open it up for public comment.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to close the public hearing. Any other comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we have two resolutions. We have resolution number 15440, resolution ordering improvement and preparation of plans and specifications. And we have resolution number 15441, resolution approving plans and specification and ordering advertising for bids.
Motion to approve both resolutions.
Oh, yeah, need to open and close the public hearing.
This is for, is this for eight? You're going this,
This is for E.
Oh, okay, yeah,
that's what I thought.
yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Pat, second by Chad to approve both of those resolutions. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, second public hearing for the bridge deck rehabilitation, levy number 10, project number 22-10.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this project entails addressing our bridge decks. Some are obviously older than others. What we are seeing out there is some concerning issues, more so on the School Road Bridge and Fifth Avenue bridges, the oldest of the group. Albeit we are seeing issues on Second Avenue and South Grade Road, which are relatively young bridges. There is some cracking, concrete deck cracking going on. So if we're going to administer a bridge deck sealing project with a little bit of rehabilitation work, we believe it would be good just to address all the bridges and get them sealed up for the long term, since we'd have a contractor in town. So on that note, we've scoped a project that'll address the School Road Bridge, South Grade Road Bridge, Fifth Avenue Southeast Bridge, Second Avenue Southeast Bridge, and then the Adams Street Bridge, which is actually under county jurisdiction as about 10 years ago when we did a turn back agreement with the county, and they took on that segment of Adams Street and that bridge, and we took on South Grade Road out to the west of town and captured the South Grade Road Bridge. And so with that, basically it's deck sealing. We're not exactly sure what type of sealing method we're going to utilize at this point, whether it's going to be more of a longer term epoxy based sealant or more of a bituminous type, normal fog seal type of sealant. But we are weighing the pros and cons of those different applications as we speak, and we're also trying to figure out exactly what to do with the concrete deck patching effort. Just a week or so ago, and you might have noticed this if you were traveling about, the consultant was out here doing what they call chaining of the concrete, and it's basically dragging a chain across the concrete to listen to the sounds it makes, and then that tells you whether that concrete surface might delaminate in the near future. So it basically an echo happens, and then you get a good idea of how susceptible that concrete surface is from basically starting to deteriorate in the near future. So if you pay attention on the School Road Bridge, you'll see some pink markings right now. So that's what's out there today. And
Sounds like voodoo.
I was thinking they get the little lady that picks the watermelons out, and she.
it's kind of like water, wrenching or whatever back in the day to a certain degree. But yeah, no, there's a little bit of a science to that. But on that note, we do know we have some issues out there on School Road, in particular, a little bit down on Fifth Avenue. We also have some joint issues on School Road and Fifth Avenue. Thankfully, the effort on Second Avenue, South Grade Road, and Adams Street over here is solely sealing the deck. There's no joint issues there or potential concrete delamination issues. So with that, yeah, we're estimating about 300,000 construction costs. We apply our normal fee structure to that. That gets us to 368,000. And we're going to push this through the municipal state aid funding process. All of these bridges, the 4 city ones and the 5th one, Adams Street, are on state aid routes, in essence, collector streets. And we're looking to hopefully secure that funding. The Adams Street portion will work out an agreement with the county engineer and do a cost sharing agreement to pick up that $40,000, give or take, and incorporate their funding into the overall project. So with that, yeah, any questions, thoughts?
So the Second Avenue Bridge is in fine shape, this is preventative at this point, or?
Yeah, it's more preventative, since we would have a contractor in town doing that.
Sure.
That method and means, so, you know, that's what a lot of this, you know, as far as the sealing contractor, you know, it's the mobilization of getting that contractor in here. It wouldn't make much sense necessarily to, you know, wait 5-10 years and do it at that point. It'd be more preventative in nature, excuse me. Albeit, I don't want to sell short the unfortunate fact, there are some, it's a little disappointing and concerning the amount of deck cracking that is occurring on 2nd Avenue and South Grade Road, for that matter.
Just how old is that bridge, Second Avenue? When do we?
5?
I was gonna say we just did.
Yeah. And South Grade's about 9-ish, I would say, top of my head right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's unfortunate what we're seeing. It's not structural in nature or concerning at this point in time on those bridges, but if we're sealing decks, we should take care of those also.
Anything else for Kent? Not, we'll open it up for public comment.
Motion to approve resolution 15.
Oh, we gotta close the public hearing.
You screwed up.
Yeah.
See, Chad wasn't even gonna say anything.
Motion to close. Public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion by Pat, second by Chad to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we have 2 resolutions underneath there. We have resolution number 15442, resolution ordering improvements and preparations of plans and specifications, and resolution number 15443, resolution approving plans and specification ordering advertisements for bids.
I'll make a motion to approve both resolutions.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat to approve both resolutions. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, thank you.
Move on to new business. Change order number 00.1, soil corrections for the new police facility project.
Mayor and council, in front of you tonight for consideration is a change order for additional soil work that needs to be, or that was done on the site. And I guess to help explain that, we've got Pete from Contegrity Group here to walk you through it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Yes, this is the last little bit to wrap up the soil challenges we've had over there at the PD site. As you know, we had an earlier change order for an assumed depth of about 7 foot of correction. Brown Intertech, the soils testing company that was employed full-time during the corrections, was here to monitor the depth, and a good share of that we went down another 2 additional feet in order to get rid of the intermixed organics that were located below the building footprint, plus the additional area outside the footing line that needed to happen. With that being said, we vetted back and forth, had a couple meetings with the civil engineer, and currently right now the remaining corrections and is $142,000, which should wrap this portion of that project up. So Looking back at the history of that site, knowing what was been on there, and what we have found since we've opened that below slab of the Econo Foods, along with the west portion of that building, it was not good. So all recommendations by the civil engineer, Brown Intertech, were to remove that soil. So that was the hand we've been dealt. Good thing is, it's completed, and we're moving forward with the rest of the project. So I'm asking your consideration for this final change order.
So we did 293, was that the first, where we had to dip in
Yeah, it was about
before?
2,500 additional yards. That was kind of a twofold process, if you remember back when the Brown report also had about half the soils on site being able to be reused, which we found out couldn't be. So that was part of that earlier change brought back to you, I think it was in December.
Was most of the damaged soil, to my understanding, underneath the actual building itself?
Yes, that was basically the biggest surprise we had. We knew we had some mixed organics outside. According to the earlier boring reports, it was more stratified, and that's why I think Braun had indicated in the report that half could be reused versus being intermixed. When we tore the Econo Foods building down and started doing test pits out there, it was basically all intermixed, the organics, in with the granular, the native soils.
Were there core samples done through the building, like when the building was still up?
No, there was not at the time, and
That could have been.
hindsight's always 20/20. Going back, maybe some destructive testing should have happened at that point. I know they did pierce the slab at a few spots to do some vapor sampling due to the fact that they had the contaminants they had located, but no soil borings were taken at that point. The one thing with that building, and I call it relatively new, the Econo Foods was about 1995, 96, which typically you would not see underneath a building of that age. If it was 50, 60, 70 years, yes, I could see where that would happen, but just the hand we were dealt. We tried everything else we potentially could to look at other options, but that's what we needed to do.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the change order. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
As long as you're up here, Pete, how about giving us a little update on the construction?
Absolutely.
As long as you're here.
Nope, not a problem. So, we were going through these soil operations in the end of December, and then the heavy was in the middle of January. We finished up soil corrections on February 7th, I believe it was. We knew we had to keep pushing forward with the project, so we turned around and started digging footings. Changed some of the mix designs to high early due to the fact that we had an open window with our precast concrete. They moved in, I think it was the 17th of February, so within a couple of weeks we had the footings poured, precast set. At the same time, we had the concrete guys working on other portions of the site with the below grade, working on the masonry coming out of the ground. And if you drive by there, you'll see where the CMU walls, the bearing walls are going up. We've also got the steel structure set over the parking garage area. The storm shelter concrete box has been set. And the plumbing underground, for the most part, the deep main is currently in as well. We still got plenty of branch lines to do, but the deep plumbing underground for the sewer has been put in as well. So we've made pretty good strides since. Weather's been somewhat decent. I know it wasn't as warm as last spring, but might be slowed down a little bit next day or two with some of the moisture. But at the same time, I think we've made pretty good ground in the last 6 weeks.
So the gray part, that's the storm shelter thing, the gray freestanding building, or?
The big box.
The big box. Yeah.
I thought Tom was getting a maximum security.
Don't, Pat, you're over that stage. So Pete, are you pretty well on schedule then? Are you back on?
No, we're not going to be back on, but at the same time too, I'm pushing with this project. With the budget constraints we currently ran into with this dirt. The one thing I need to do is continue this path forward. We've got the contractors up and moving, a pretty good flow going, so our biggest part right now, if you know, in construction is to get this enclosed and weather tight so some of these other operations can go. We've been pretty well blessed as far as if you see all the foam laying across the street and that we have our roofing insulation and the roofing membrane, which is key. There's been major delays in the industry. We've been able to secure that. Been working with JJ to find places in town to store it, and so it's nice to have that part on site. I do know we'll have some hiccups down the line just with the supply chain. Something's gonna come down the pike that a motor won't be available or.
We agreed that we weren't gonna have no hiccups.
Okay, it's gonna be the glass in the windows.
Okay, all right, yeah.
No, we're doing the best we can. So, made great strides, but I'm hoping to keep this flow going, pick up the schedule and complete this at the same time frame we originally had scheduled. So that's my hopes.
All right,
Thank you
thanks, Pete, for the update.
very much.
Yep. Moving on, under new business, resolution number 15436, resolution implementing the labor agreement between the City of Hutchinson and the Law Enforcement Labor Services Incorporated, representing Hutchinson.
Mayor and council, this is our 2022 labor agreement with the police sergeant group. This is actually their second contract. Another negotiating committee did meet with them back in, it was late 2021, and then we did have a mediation session in February, and we're able to come to an agreement that's in front of you for consideration tonight. I think there was a minor change on the shift differential. Otherwise, they agreed to the 7% that we'd given out to the rest of the employees here at the City of Hutchinson. So it's our recommendation from the committee that the council approve the agreement that's in front of you tonight. So it has been signed off by the union.
I will make a motion to approve 15436.
I will second that.
Motion by Mary, second by Chad to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 15444, resolution accepting bids and awarding contracts. Letting number 8, project number 22-08, the wastewater treatment facility oxidation ditch aeration improvements.
All right, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'll kick it off, and then
Okay.
Tim's here this evening also. He can jump up and share a little bit with respect to a project scope and timeframes. But included in your packet is the bid tabulation. We did receive bids on this project back in late March, and the low bid, well, I should say, we're fortunate enough to receive 3 bids from 3 very good contractors that we've worked with for a month in the past. So that was a good thing to begin with. And the low bidder is Gritter Construction out of Buffalo, who's done this type of work at the wastewater treatment facility before. Their bid was approximately 5% over our estimate of $400,000. So no surprise there, like anything else nowadays. And to be within 5% is all good. And with that, yeah, we're recommending awarding the project this evening. I'll turn it over to Tim.
Yeah, we had a couple good bids, 2 close bids. So Rice Lake, who is on the construction site right now, was the second place bidder. Gritter did do the original work in phase 1 of this project, so this is like phase 2, purchasing the other 2 Triton Aero 2 blower mixers and replacing the last 2 rotors with those. So they're very familiar with the project, the work, what they'll have to do, so we feel confident that they'll be able to pull this off pretty seamlessly. There's a time frame, of course, 20 weeks or so to get the mounts that these Aero 2 mixers will mount to. So this project probably won't start construction until towards the fall. And stating that then we will be switching back to that ditch and run on it so that we can perform some trialing in our B&R processes that we have to do for our permits. So that'll give us a little advantage, and then we'll flip off of it when they have to do work in it. So
Maybe you want to explain just a little bit the science why we're doing this area improvements.
So when I mentioned BNR, that's biological nutrient reduction, we have to reduce our phosphorus in the effluent discharge to the river, and that's according to our permit from the state. And in order to do that, we can't do it all in chemical like we do it right now. We feel that we'll have to do a portion of it biologically, which means we have to grow a certain type of microbes, and we have to make conditions for them to grow so that they can take up this phosphorus, and then we waste them out. So it goes into our biosolids. In order to do that, we have to separate mixing from aeration, which right now both are combined in our processes, both of our processes. And so this will take the mixers and separate them from the air being added to the mixture. So we can have periods where there's no oxygen being added, so they can go anaerobic and thus create the culture and the microbes that are necessary for the process. So it's a lot of science.
It's basically getting air to bugs, so the bugs can, be have plenty of oxygen to do their job during the process.
And then we remove the air and we make them dependent on taking the oxygen away from the combinations in the mixture. So you have to cycle it back and forth. Science. Lots of biology and science.
I think I'm going with Pat. This is voodoo.
There is a lot of
They
food.
brought the chains and checked out.
Oh, I think I'll do the witching. No, but that's the gist of it, so.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
All right, thanks, Kim.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat to approve resolution number 15444. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we have resolution number 15448, resolution accepting the Otter and Campbell Lakes Restoration Project Environmental Assessment Worksheet and authorizing distribution.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. Before you tonight is the resolution to consider distribution of our environmental assessment worksheet. This is the next major step in moving forward with our Lakes River Improvement Project. With the funding that we received from the legislature a little over a year ago, one of the primary hurdles that we have to get over is looking at potential impacts to the environment. To be able to do that effectively, we've been working with project partners, including Bolton and Mink, both Nicholas Peterson with us here tonight, and then also Todd Hubmer, along with Soil Water Conservation District, Minnesota DNR staff, and PCA federal staff at the Corps of Engineers. So we've been engaging with those through this process. I'll have Todd do an overview of kind of the AW, the schedule, kind of do a project update as well. But with that, I'll introduce Todd Hubmer, and please feel free to ask any questions that you have throughout. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City staff. It's nice to be back in person. I think this is our first reinvigoration of this project back in face-to-face. We did receive, I think it was $3.3 million from the legislature in the last bonding cycle, and we've spent the first half of last year getting that contract underway, and then getting that signed, and now we've been working on the environmental assessment worksheet. I just want to talk to you a little bit and remind you about some of the goals of the project. The goals are really to improve the water quality inside of both Otter and Campbell Lakes. We're also looking at reducing soil loss in the watershed, and I'll talk a little bit about some of those improvements. And then restoring the habitat inside of the lake, areas that have been silted in and sedimented in, removing some of that silt and sediment, and then placing in rock veins, wood structure and habitat, sandy areas for fish recruitment or spawning, deepening parts of the lake to help minimize the effects of oxygen and fish kill potential. And then enhancing recreational opportunities, adding some fishing pier locations, some carry-in locations for canoes and kayaks. And then I'll see if we have the opportunity to take some of this soil that's come off of the farm fields and excavate it out of or dredge from the lakes and place it back on some farm fields that could be replenished with the topsoil with the material that's currently in the lakes. So let's talk a little bit about where we've been and where we're at today. We did a historical data review. We spent a long period of time doing that, developing a concept plan for Otter and Campbell Lakes with all of our stakeholders and several of the residents as well. We've identified issues in water quality and habitat and recreation. We've selected some top priority projects with the technical advisory panel. We estimated some project costs and we went to the legislature to participate or request some funding, and we received that. And the first part of that aspect is preparing an environmental assessment worksheet, which is why we're here today. The project requires an environmental assessment worksheet. It's a mandatory category. We are going to disturb more than 1 acre of public water of the state. So any of our activities, either in the South Fork of the Crow River or within Otter and Campbell Lake, will cumulatively be over 1 acre. The other aspect of an environmental assessment worksheet is that we have to look at connected actions, and we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, that some of the work that we might do in reducing sediment in some of the upland farm field locations or along South Fork of the Crow River, they're tied to the same funding sources, so they would be considered connected to the activities within Otter and Campbell Lake. So we want to make sure that we're covering the whole scope of the project with this environmental worksheet. Some of the things you'll see here on the right, those pink dots, we've been working with some of our project partners on the Soil Water Conservation District. These are just sites that we quickly looked and said, well, these are areas we might be able to do something. We have no plans currently for those, but there's just the idea that we're trying to identify some locations for our environmental review. The purpose of the environmental assessment worksheet is not to answer every environmental question that we have about the project. It's to evaluate the processes that the state and local government agencies have available to provide permits during the design process and during construction to make sure that any environmental concerns can be addressed. The other aspect too is to identify those things that are architecturally, archaeologically, or invasive or species, endangered and threatened species, where they may be present in the watershed, and areas that we are going to avoid with this particular process. A lot of times we'd have to mitigate for those impacts. We're simply going to avoid those areas that have those with this particular project. So the key decision at the end of this process that we'll have in about a month and a half is going to be a decision not, hopefully, to have an environmental impact statement. And then that means that the environmental process is complete. We have enough controls in place to handle any proposed impacts that may happen through the project on the environment. And once this council approves the resolution today, we'd be going forward and publishing, easy for me to say this evening, the EAW to both all the review agencies and make it available to public for comment. So our project boundary is very large. It encompasses three counties, and we spent a lot of time over the last year defining where we might do stream restoration work along the South Fork of the Crow River and where we might do some sediment locations. And we worked closely with the MPCA staff on defining the limits of where those benefits would be directly attributable to reducing contaminants and sediment inside of Otter and Campbell Lakes. PCA's developed a model that they're using in other parts of the Crow River, and we asked them to apply that model to the South Fork of the Crow River upstream of Otter and Campbell Lakes. And so we have state buy-in on these limits, and that helps us also with our funding from the state. We have a really nice methodology in justifying expenditures anywhere within this limits that we've identified to be eligible for that state contribution. The schedule for the EAW, which is why we're here tonight, is to send it out to the stakeholders this week. Well, we met with the stakeholders last week. We'll get some comments back, we expect by Wednesday of this week, tomorrow, from some of those stakeholders. We're presenting it tonight to the council. We'll submit it to the Environmental Quality Board for publication later this week. And once it goes into the Environmental Quality Board, or the EQB, we'll receive comments from the public and the review agencies by May 12th, 30-day comment period. And then at that point, we'll start responding to any comments that we receive. We'll address some of the concerns. We'll put a findings and conclusion comment response letter together for the council's consideration, and we'll make a determination on the need or not for the need of an EIS in May 12th to June 12th. And then we'll distribute that decision notice back out on June 13th. So I want to give you just a little reminder on the project, since it's been a long time since we've talked about it in the past. We have a number of elements. Some of the elements are looking at collecting some data inside of the lakes, and a lot of this data will be collected as our preliminary engineering documents are prepared. Sediment borings, we've also done a lot of discussion with our stakeholders on areas that contribute nutrients into Otter and Campbell Lakes and where we can best locate some of these improvements in the watershed to reduce that sediment load. If you remember with our discussions with the legislature last time, the key concern with spending money in the dredging part of the lake or removing material from the lake is making sure that material doesn't immediately come back in and fill the lake up. So we want to make these improvements last a long time. We want to also make a place for us to maintain those. So our first allocation of funds from the legislature looks at restoring stream banks along the Crow River. We're proposing to fly this spring before the leaves get on. The Google Street View cameras you see, we're going to attach one of those to a drone, and we're going to fly the limits of the Crow River, and we'll be able to do all our design work off of those 360 cameras and be able to see where those areas of erosion are that are contributing sediment load to Otter and Campbell Lake. And then we can start working on the plans for restoration on that. Shoreline restoration is another part that is included. There's a number of projects that have already been completed on restoration on Otter and Campbell Lake by private property owners and with some grant programs that are available through Soil and Water Conservation District. And so we would continue to tie into those and look for opportunities to reduce soil from stream bank erosion. Wetland restoration, there are some areas beyond this scope that we have begun to talk about wetland restoration, and really it would look at blocking up some tile lines and some marginal farmlands in close proximity to the South Fork of the Crow River that take in large ag drainage parcels so that we can treat that water through wetlands and restore some habitat just before it gets into the Crow River, which would benefit Otter and Campbell Lakes by reducing that sediment load. The other aspect that we received funding for was the construction of this forebay. And the forebay is really at the mouth of the Crow River. We have all of this sand and other materials that come down the Crow River. They make up the bulk of the sediment that's inside of Otter and Campbell Lake. If there's a location where we can encourage that sediment to settle out, and then on maybe a 5-year or 6-year, we'll figure out what basis that is. We can go in and just remove that and design it so that it's easily removed. It's not a complicated process, and we don't have to go through a lot of permit hurdles associated with doing that as well. We'll incorporate that into the design and operation of the system. Then that'll allow us to maintain that in one location so that we protect all the investment in downstream of that in Otter and Campbell Lake with the excavation and also the construction of habitat improvements. And this is really looking at the habitat improvements. That is a mixture of, I mentioned before, putting in some rocky areas, some fishing piers, improving accessibility, dredging out the area around the boat ramp, which seems to be problematic at the current time. Also along the campground areas and allowing places and attracting fish to locations where people can get to. There's no sense in putting in a floating fishing pier if people can't catch fish there because we didn't encourage fish to live around the pier. So we try to do that as well so that it is a good experience for people. And then also improving recreational activities. Here's some of the access points that we've preliminarily talked about for the lake and being able to get people closer to it. Some of them are including some ADA accessibility, so folks that have a harder time getting around can get access to a fishing pier as well and have the ability to participate. And we have a lot of public spaces around these lakes, so that's one of the reasons the legislature finds this a great opportunity, because we are encouraging large numbers of people to be present in these spaces. And then rough fish control is probably the last piece of the equation. We know that carp contribute to water quality degradation considerably. In a system like this, you're never going to stop carp from being here. That's not the goal of this. I would never say that, because carp are highly intelligent and they will find a way to breed somewhere in the system no matter what we try to do. But some of the things that we can do is manage them. We can manage them at a density that doesn't have adverse impacts to water quality, and there are some numbers we can play with in that. So we have some money down the road, and that's probably one of the last activities we would consider. And this is just a summary of all the activities that we've presented to the legislature in the past and also to our stakeholders, so they're aware of all the efforts that are intended to happen inside of Otter and Campbell Lake. And the next steps, complete the EAW process. We can't go to any construction or approve any of those plans until this process is complete. And so that's where we stand tonight with you on asking you to accept that report and authorize it to be published. Any questions?
So, I mean, I know Pat's fairly new at the council, and we're looking at what, 23 to 25 million really to do all of this, and what we've got right now is 3 million. And so I think it's important for everybody to realize this is a long process.
This is a marathon, this is not a sprint.
Yeah, we're just meeting for the meeting this evening with Todd and Nick, and there's other funding opportunities that present themselves on this, and substantial funding opportunities for that matter. So it's just not necessarily going after state bonding dollars, every other year or whenever the state legislature puts a bonding bill together. But there's LCCMR dollars, which is a big pot of money that's basically lottery dollars, correct? Yes, that's generated by the lotto. They have about $70 million that they're giving out in their next 2-year cycle here. So we're looking at scoping a grant application on that front. There's other funding opportunities that McLeod Soil and Water District have, in Avenue too. So we're working with Ryan Freitag on that front also, and yeah, we're gonna do everything we can, to leverage that $3 million or so with other grants. So yeah, expect to see as early as May, just a few, May's not too far away, just a few weeks from now, a grant application that needs to be submitted on those LCCMR lotto dollars. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Todd, on that front?
No, I think we'll work internally on scoping of a project. We talked about the south bay of Otter Lake, starting there because that doesn't receive direct inputs from South Fork of the Crow River.
Yeah, but like Matt said, this is a huge endeavor that's going to play out over decades, probably. And even in 10 years, it's maybe a 20-year vision, by the end of this. Yeah.
I don't know if I'll get to see that.
That's where you find $29 just lying around. But it's a long time coming for this community. It's taken a fair amount of vision and legwork even to get to this point. So, I think, we've been talking about dredging, quote unquote, ever since I arrived 17 years ago, and there was a study done, the early 90s, John? Yep. And I think the city did a quasi-study then, and yeah, times have changed between now and the early 90s with respect to environmental expectations and permitting, and we have to do this hand in hand with our DNR friends. They hold the keys to this at the end of the day, so we're gonna have to work through their process, and hopefully we can get there and just keep chipping away on the funding side of things.
Well, that's why we have ponds all over, kind of keep the sediments out of a lot of the storm drains. City does a good job of cleaning up the streets after winter, and you can tell, like John, by Lewis Street outlet there's a nice sandbar that's been there for you know,
Quite a while.
probably when we were young.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, we've definitely, we've made those investments, like you say, Mayor, you know, that was happening. The city, you know, with Mr. Roderberg, you know, leading the charge early on with respect to stormwater treatment and management, you know, did a fine job getting those things in place, and then ever, you know, since I've been here, we've, you know, we built regional ponds, you know, obviously Maplewood and Northwoods, you know, and encourage developers, you know, to do the right thing with respect to ponding, and not only encourage it, required it, you know, to a large degree. And yeah, I think we're well situated with those investments and that approach to take this on and for this to be a worthwhile effort at this point in time.
I think, you know, just having been here for a lot of years, we're fortunate to have the two lakes and the river go through town, and anything we can do to increase the use and just the beauty of it and the longevity is nothing but positive.
So with that, yeah, we have a resolution that's within your packet that, or I think it's on the agenda, obviously it's noted, that needs to be approved tonight to publish the EAW, like Mr. Hubbard mentioned.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Pat, second by Mary to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
City Council Workshop for April 26th, 2022 at 4 p.m. to review ARPA funding.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, as we've talked about, and as you probably recollect, we are expected to receive a total of about 1.5 million of federal ARPA money. And so we have to come up with a plan on how that money, how we're going to spend that money. And so this is kind of really our next step, is to have a workshop with the council to go over whatever some of the eligible uses, some of the ideas that have been brought forth from staff, and then try to get some direction from the council on where we'd like to go with that.
Have you received guidelines so far?
Yes, we got all that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Entertain a motion to set that workshop.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Pat, second by Chad to set the workshop. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Governance, we have Sustainability Advisory Board minutes from November 15th, 2021. We have Hutchinson Housing Redevelopment Authority Board revised minutes from November 16th, 2021. And we have the Hutchinson Housing Redevelopment Authority Board minutes from February 15th, 2022. The Hutch Utilities Commission minutes from February 23rd, 2022. The EDA Board minutes from February 23rd, 2022. And the Library Board minutes from February 28th, 2022. Chief Gifferson, do you have anything for us tonight?
Don't, unless you have some questions of me.
Anything for Tom? John, do you got anything else for us?
I have nothing to add this evening, thank you.
Lynn?
I do.
Okay.
I was just gonna throw it out there that our Hutchinson Parks Rec and Community Education Summer Brochure should have hit all of our residents' mailboxes last week. And then registration does open tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for all of our camps, activities, programs, minus swim lessons. So they'll open tomorrow morning for activities, camps, and programs at 9 a.m. And then the following Wednesday, April 20th, swim lessons will open at 9 a.m. for registration. People can come to the Parks Rec and Community Education office and register there. You can register online, or you can give us a call over the phone. So all of your summer happenings you can get registered for.
Lynn, can you throw that number out?
Yes.
587-2975.
There you go. I was gonna give you mine, but I don't wanna take all the registrations over the phone. There you go.
One more time.
587-2975.
There you go. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Linz.
She jarred my memory.
You had no.
Done.
Also in the Park and Rec Community Ed brochure is a stormwater page for Public Works. One of the components of that includes rain barrel sales information. Due to the border issues that we've been seeing, other things too associated with the manufacture of our rain barrels, we will be getting rain barrels this year, but not until like June, early July. So what we typically would done in the past is we'd have the distribution event in late April, but we haven't been able to get those barrels yet this year, so that'll be postponed. I've been getting phone calls from folks already, those that are interested in barrels, and I've had to tell them to just hold off. We'll distribute some additional information once we know when that sale date and pickup date will be.
So you do have a waiting list then?
Yeah, I think I've already sold probably about 30 barrels.
And you need to tell everybody how much they cost.
They were $55 last year, but because of the significant increase in shipping costs, we don't know for sure exactly what those shipping costs will be at this point in time because they come in from Canada. We're anticipating they may go up to as high as $65.
Okay. It's still a good investment.
Yes,
though.
it is.
Very good.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, John. Ken?
2 items, mentioned that Highway 15 detour. That was, notice came out about a week or so ago. It was supposed to go in place yesterday, April 11th. I don't know if it actually did. They got started construction wise, with the weather being what it is, but, it did go in place yesterday. It's coming soon, so anyways.
That's up by Kimball, right?
That's Kimball coming south.
Around Kimball, yep, so 24, get off on 24 south of Kimball, go over to County Road to the west, and then back up to 55.
Nice windy road.
Nice drive.
It's a scenic route.
Otherwise, I know John's still here, and council's probably heard about this, we have a little bit of a fish kill issue going on, so, yeah, John's been consulting with the DNR staff. Thankfully, we've had a relatively slow melt and thaw, I should say, and you know, the temps have been, you know, obviously on the low side, cooler side, so we're hoping Mother Nature, you know, just helps us out between the birds and just slow decomposition, you know, that, yeah, it takes care. It's primarily in non-residential areas. The vast majority of it's on the south shore by Roberts Park, either direction, so.
It's where the eagles are.
Yeah, obviously, that's where they're gonna John's got anything else to add?
Yeah, one thing to add on that front, in consulting with Andy Kosek at Creekside, they are accepting those as part of their organics container. The one nuance to that is don't fill it up. The equipment can only lift a certain weight. I think that's actually posted on the container itself. So if you want to periodically over the next 3 weeks get rid of a handful of them each week,
go scoop up dead fish.
It's a nasty mess if you want to use a pitchfork to do that, but certainly if landowners want to do something on their own, if they feel so inclined, there's an option there as well. So.
China, hasn't the DNR kind of suggested that just to let basically nature take care of it?
Yep, let nature run its course.
Well,
Morgan, do you have them by your house?
We have plenty of it. The whole town is gonna smell like it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, we've seen this before, but like was mentioned earlier, habitat improvements that Mr. Hefner was alluding to, that, you know, includes adding depth in some areas to the basin. So obviously, the deeper the water, you know, the less likelihood of fish kill or significant fish kill. You know, the basin's just so shallow when we have a winter like we are coming out of, you know, not only on the cooler side, but the ice was covered in snow basically the entire winter. So, you know, no sunlight was getting through the ice to the plant life to help generate some oxygen. So was to be expected this year.
So John, is that mostly from Otter and Campbell that they come from, or is it from upstream?
So the good majority of those are winter in the basin itself, in the reservoir. Certainly, yeah, there was probably some mortality in the river itself too. But yeah, what we're seeing is primarily what was contained within the reservoir. The DNR has noted that, yeah, there's a lot of fish that have died, but since it is a river system, they are very confident that they'll repopulate rather quickly. So it's not necessarily a loss of fish from the standpoint where we're not going to have any. They'll come back, but certainly, yeah, it's a mess for the time being.
Thanks. Anything else, Ken? No?
All good.
Mark?
Nothing else tonight.
Oh, geez. How about Mary?
Well, I don't have a whole lot to say except, we have really nice things in Hutchinson and we tend to have people who like to vandalize them. Our parks have certainly been hit. And I don't know if people don't understand that when you damage those things, we, as a city and the taxpayers, are paying to get those fixed. So please stop, think, and don't do vandalism. I'm sure the Parks Department is always chasing something that needs to be fixed. And granted, we have a lot of parks, but they're beautiful and they're for everyone to use. So please stop vandalizing. That's it for me.
Dave?
After that reprimand, I'm not gonna say.
Almost felt like he had to go sit in a corner.
No, I don't have anything, thank you.
Pat?
Morgan can borrow 2 of my cats. No, I can't get off the fish thing. I wasn't aware of it. No, not really. Just, as I always say, spend your money in Hutch.
So I had a couple of things. My wife and I went kayaking on Saturday on the river, and I'll verify it's a little ripe in certain spots.
So you went quicker in some spots than the
We
others?
got away from the landing pretty quick, because over by Roberts, it's pretty ripe over there. So I don't know if staff could maybe just poke a couple of them back into the river that are right by the landing, but that would help when people are getting their boats in and out. But thankfully, we only saw like a lot of carp. There weren't any game fish for whatever that's worth. But Kent, did you know that the DNR is still maintaining the Crow River as a canoeable route? Do they go through and clean up snags and stuff?
It is a water route, yes, established by the DNR, albeit the maintenance of that is erratic, I guess, or.
Lax.
I don't know if you've heard anything on that front lately, Jen. That's been talked about over the years. I don't think they've done a significant maintenance effort, basically tree removal effort.
Sure.
Some time, is my understanding.
Because I know snowmobile clubs used to do it a little bit in the winter, but I don't know if they still do that or not.
So,
No, I don't think they use the Crow River like they used to.
No,
They used to be a
agree.
main people around that thick, but I don't think it's snowmobile down much anymore.
Sure.
As Todd noted, one of the components of the project is to do a survey upstream with the actual river, the river stretch. That'll be one of the things identified as navigable obstructions. Certainly, if you see things like that through your travels and through your uses of the river, please make note of those. We can certainly keep a rolling tally of those, and I can only assume that the DNR will only address those as the need arises. So if there's a whole list of 20 different locations where there's trees cutting off navigation across the entire channel, those types of things, I think if there's enough of them, they can solicit help from things like the Green Corps, the Minnesota Conservation Corps, types of organizations like that that are trained and have the capacity, basically the sweat equity to be able to get out there and do that. It's hard work. To be able to do that. Certainly, yeah, as people feel the need, we try not to encourage cut logs and things from floating down the river because they're just going to end up on the dam. Ideally, when you cut those, remove those as you get them out of there. So I would default to, let the DNR kind of guide that process. What's the right approach to do that? So don't just go out and just start cutting stuff up. But certainly, that's not to say that's not an option, but I would consult with the DNR before doing something like that. But yeah, I think if we generate enough of a demand to do a project like that in cooperation with the DNR and other potential volunteers or organizations that they work with, might have to be able to do something like that. But I think it's really dictated by the need.
Okay, perfect. And then we're biking on the South Grade Trail west of Church Corner, and there's a couple of pretty good humps down there now, and like it might be just the frost coming out, but you know, like in the past couple of years, the contractor that John's hired to do like the trail crack sealing and stuff has done an excellent job. So that might be one to look at this year. But
I know what you're talking about out there. That's it's kind of that low-lying area.
yeah, at the bottom of the hill, there's a real big whooper down there, and
Yeah, it's poor soils that are
yeah.
relatively.
Yeah, but that's
wet.
fun to go over.
Yeah.
So,
Well, people that are coming down that hill, they got a full head of steam, and then it's a pretty good little gap there. A couple of them are pretty rough.
Can't complain when you go over
Yeah.
it 4 times.
Yeah.
My hope would that would subside a little bit. Things with the amount of frost in the ground and the
Yeah.
moisture we had late in the fall.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's driveways or streets or curbs in some areas, things that moved,
Yeah.
you know, heaved substantially in some
Sure.
areas. So I think we're still hoping things fall back into place on
Sure.
some fronts.
Because a few of them are,
We'll take a look at
a
it.
few of them I would say in the annoying category, and then there's one that's in the dangerous category. You know, like if a kid hits it pretty hot. And then I just wanted to note that Lynn Newman went down on Friday after work to clean up some artwork at Elks Park. So she went above and beyond to clean up some graffiti down there. So I just wanted to note that because that was really nice. So there we go. That's all I had.
Chad, I thought I saw you digging that down so that they would have to replace their tires when they went over it.
No. So that is on our route. South Grade's on our route, so I was told to note it tonight. So there we are.
Benny told you that you better.
It was from my wife, so there we go.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yes.
Man.
I know Mayor and Council had sent out an email regarding a joint workshop with the county board. We're looking at Mondays, either May 2nd or May 9th at 3 o'clock. I don't know if one of those days works better for either one of you, and we might even do it up at the, what's the facility, Kent? Up on, yeah, that hazardous waste.
Could you repeat those dates?
May 2nd or May 9th, and they're looking at 3 o'clock. I don't know if they want to.
held here?
Probably at the hazardous waste facility.
Up on Fifth Avenue.
So,
I can make either one work.
okay.
Same here.
We'll probably be on the next agenda and to set that, but just kind of wanted to communicate that with the county.
How long of a talk do you think it'll be?
We've got 3 or 4 items. It could be an hour and a half.
Hour and a
So,
half, 2 hours, I suppose.
yeah. So,
Sounds good.
all right, I'll let you know for sure. That's it for me, otherwise.
Well, Mary took some of my thunder, and so did Chad, about the vandalism. And as my kids always say, that's why we can't have nice stuff. People do that. The other thing, I had a gentleman visit me yesterday at my business, voicing his concerns about the pothole out by Happy Panda RVs. And evidently he's the same guy that come and talked to me before. And I told him that it was private property and that the city has nothing to do with it. But he said that he didn't want that answer that I gave him.
That's surprising.
I know. It was funny because I stopped down here and some of the gals at back. He was down here before, so he didn't get the answer here, so they said, well, why don't you go talk to the mayor? So, so that's why I get the big bucks, Matt.
Is there,
So
Is there, honestly, I mean, anybody that's driving out there, it is bad. I would like to know the name of the owners of the property.
Well,
And
I'll tell you,
so when
so
someone
this
calls
is,
us, you can go, call this number.
well, so this is the problem. The owner lives in California.
Sure, I know that, but you know what, pain in the, you know what calls?
We attempted to call. And we got a message saying that to save money, they're not using phones and to email, this and that.
I'd gladly get the email.
This isn't, obviously this isn't a new conversation. We've had it with the mall, parking lot. Mark and I have talked about it. Could we call it a public nuisance? Sure, and then enforce that. My concern is, you're talking about private parking lots, and the easy ones to point out are the one over by Target and the one by Cashwise and the one by the malls, but what happens when it's Ace or it's
Private owned, not big corporations.
not big corporations and the public wanting the city, or it's a church? Now you're talking about using several resources of the city. And we've had this issue in the past where it takes up to 7 years to address a nuisance when you go through the process, like we sometimes have to if somebody wants to fight you with a nuisance. So it's easy to call and say, city, go deal with it. Okay, well, there's a legal process that we now have to do. And people say, why do you have a public nuisance ordinance? Hopefully you don't get to that point, but it's not as simple as saying, hey, please fix your nuisance. Most property owners fortunately do, a lot don't. And then it takes some time. My advice is, have they talked with the businesses that are adjacent? Because most of them are probably part of some sort of association that, and some of it too, and I know I think either it was Kent or John, they can go fill them right now, and next week when it hits 32 degrees, they're all gonna pop out again.
Yeah. Throwing gravel in them, which is a short-term fix during, this time of year. I think the other issue, and staff's been aware of this dynamic for some time, and I think really what's playing out specifically in the mall area, then down there in Target, even Walmart, there's a quasi frontage road there, and it starts on South Grade Road, goes by Cashwise, then you swing around McDonald's and you go up by Runnings there, that hokey corner, then you can go across Century, go around you all know what I'm talking about, around Walmart, and then, across Denver, and then you get on basically the straight shot there by Aldi, and Pizza Ranch, Target, and then on the other side of the road, you obviously have Qdoba and other businesses that generate traffic. And what people I think are more concerned about is the condition of that frontage road scenario, because that's where the traffic is, that people start moving along, and that's where that ugly pothole is over there by Arby's that I went out there this afternoon. And especially when it's raining, it's even more problematic because you don't know what you're driving into, obviously, when it's filled with water. But and this was identified, this scenario, back in our transportation plan that we finished up in 2012, is should the city basically look to improve, well, first of all, you have to work through the property rights and acquire property rights to formalize that as a public right-of-way. And there'd have to be some cleaning up to do with exactly what that route is. But over time, you would basically have a 3-block, frontage road, and then you would clean up the intersections, like where it crosses Century by Runnings there. You might want to do some sort of roundabout or some sort of intersection improvement. You want to clean up how that enters, and interacts with the Runnings traffic. So what really needs to be done, and like I said, we did a focus area, within that transportation plan a decade ago, should the city consider going after property rights to create a public right-of-way, a frontage road, And then we basically then build a new roadway, delineate it, curb it. You know, we're gonna wanna not let every parking lot aisle, you know, onto the roadway like, you know, Target has and Walmart has. Every one of them, you know, goes into the front eighth road. So you're gonna wanna better delineate parking lots and address the drainage issues out there. That's the other issue. You have a bunch of blacked out there that's got nowhere to drain, you know, and it's gotta work its way out, and it takes water to stack up to get some. So at the end of the day, that's, I think, really what the city needs to start considering. If we're willing to make that investment and start to size that type of project down. Because I think if you had a public roadway through there, you would address 90% of the issues. And then it's just lot specific, you know, if, you know, hard to address theirs, but let's just say then it's just Arby's has a crappy lot. Excuse my language, but, you know, but at least the traveling public pushing through there isn't dealing with the cruddy lot.
You know, I kind of mentioned that to him, you know, and I said, your taxes probably go up because, well, I don't want my taxes to go up, but can you just fix that?
It would be a cheap endeavor because you would basically be reconstructing and building a new road.
Right. And just the acquisition of those, right?
Yeah,
Just the cost
exactly.
of their alone.
Yeah, hopefully you'd have willing partners that dedicate you the easement, but that's not a given. You're exactly right, Mark, yeah.
So, I mean, I think all that land that Kent just talked about, especially for those that may be watching on TV, so I think there's hopefully a better understanding, that's all private land.
Right.
Now, all of us that live and work in Hutch, we all take those roads to go to our shopping malls and our shopping destinations, and we've all been in those frustrations with those potholes. I think that's the tough position we're in as a city. Those are all private properties. So now you can imagine, you multiply that by all the private parking lots in town. And so if the desire of the public for the council is, you need to make that a public nuisance and address it. That area is very easy to see, but now you just tripled the amount of properties that we are now responsible for overseeing the parking lots. And I can tell you, I'm not gonna listen, I know on, to embarrass the amount of private parking lots that are in really tough shape that we would start having to go after, and we'd have very full council chambers on a regular basis. And so that's, to me, I think those are the things that we need to weigh, or you get into Kent's situation where you start looking at purchasing some of these.
I told the guy, you know, that'd be fine if we go to fix parking lots, because mine's getting kind of wore out, so, you know.
You don't have to look too far to find sewer parking lots.
Well, you know, like.
And the other slippery slope, honestly, if we allow people to police parking lots, which is obviously subjective in nature, the condition of parking lots, you know, where's that threshold that necessitates repairs to be forced upon a property owner? You know, I don't want to be in that business. I'm sure council doesn't want to be in that business. But the slippery slope is, are we gonna let people police the condition of our roadways? You know, that's the fine line. You know, there's a relatively sore roadway right out the window here. You know, that people could be saying, hey, what the heck?
Mine can't happen every day, you know that.
So it's just a slippery slope. You always take feedback from the public, but to necessarily react is, long and hard sometimes.
Well, I told the gentleman that I was gonna bring it up because he kept, every time I told him something, it wasn't the right thing to say. So I said that I'd bring it up, and hopefully, I think you guys gave a good explanation. If they don't understand, come down to City Hall. Can't they're mad or,
And whether it's understanding it, I think that it's just important to understand how much government do you want involved in private property matters. And that's where I would ask, have you talked with those businesses? Maybe they've all talked with, I mean, I don't know how most of that ownership, we know, like, when we looked at the mall a few years back, luckily they did it, but there's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different ownerships in parking lots and road right-of-ways, and so, have you talked with some of them? Because some of them might say, yeah, well, we've talked with who's ever in charge of it, and we'll look to get it addressed this summer, or trust us, we've been hounding whoever to try to get fixed, or no.
Is the mall still from out in New Jersey, the owners?
Yeah, but I know they did a pretty good.
Yeah, they cleaned up their lot.
Yeah.
That's like
Chicago, New Jersey.
the Arby's area, where, honestly, I don't know who owns that stretch of roadway.
No,
Is that
can't-
part of the Arby's lot? Is that
Yeah,
part of the
does-
across the
doesn't-
street? You know,
Does it run down the center?
No, not necessarily. That's the scary thing. It's such a hodgepodge of how those lots are configured and how they were piecemeal developed back when. You know, I just go back to, yeah, it was developed in that fashion, but the city probably should at least start putting a plan together to create that frontage road scenario, to have an understanding. You can do the planning effort and some preliminary design effort, to have an understanding, what would it cost to formalize a public right-of-way through there? And then you would have to get into the property acquisition side of it, which I would hope, if you went to those property owners and said, hey, we're gonna take this roadway off your hands, this stretch of blacktop, and you need to plat it and give it to us, that they would say, have at it, here's the keys to it.
The trouble is, we would be responsible for snow removal.
Yes,
through that.
then it would be a city street, it would be a frontage road.
Talk about a slippery slope.
No, but I think that's the trade-offs of operating a public right-of-way is,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, you have a roadway through there that doesn't have a crater in the middle of it this time of year. That unfortunately, a lot of the public's pushing through there, treating it as a public street today.
Assuming that, looks like John Olson looked into the owners, it's an investment company out of Malibu, California. And so, that's where I'm just talking about the challenges, because our nuisance ordinance talks about how you have to get a written notice to the property owner. And you have to give them so much time to fix it. And then if they basically choose to ignore that, then you have a hearing in front of the council, where the council essentially orders them to fix it. If that doesn't take place, then you go and get a court order to allow the city to fix it. So then we go in, we fix it, and then you assess the property owner, and if they never pay for it, then your city's covering those costs, then you assess it. Or if they fight you, we've had nuisance properties in town where people say, oh, we haven't cleaned enough. It took 7 years to go through court orders to get it taken care of. So, I think that's just the big picture challenge that, now hopefully not every nuisance problem we've had takes 7 years, but that can be some of the difficult things of trying to work through all of this.
All right, I think we spent enough time on this one.
There's ways to get somewhere without going across that road.
That's right, take a different route.
I've had several conversations with people, I can't get to Arby's because of that big hole. I said, well, go to the south end and come in along the bank. Nice road there.
All right.
That's it. It's a good road.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
It's gonna pass anyway.